All right. How's it going?
Ah, doing well.
All right. And you're in Canada, right?
Yes, I'm in West Canada, in the province of British Columbia, and I live in the municipality of Richmond.
Okay.
So right by the river delta of the Langley River.
Okay. Yeah, I hear it's beautiful there. I want to visit sometime.
I see it as that if we ever have the big one hit at the West Coast, I'm at front row seat because
Mm.
River Delta is it has no stable rock bed, and it's gonna be the first time when ocean wave flooding in.
Oh,
That's the
gotcha.
way I
Okay.
look at it.
So it's
Yeah,
beautiful for now, but might have some
yeah,
issues.
yeah.
Um,
Trouble ahead.
gotcha. Okay, so we're gonna talk about veganism and let's just go in general. What are your thoughts on veganism?
I find that when people wanted to use, I heard one way people wanted to use that. Oh, that's how Noah was done it when they were all aboarding the ark, and how they find out that's just how veganism looking at it is is totally sustainable. And I look at it as that, well, it's not necessarily by choice now, is it? If you're really taking everything into account, your only choice of a dietary practice will be veganism when you trap on a ship with two pairs of animal and you don't want it to consume them. It's it has nothing to do with whatever that you think is sustainable. It's just through process of elimination.
Hmm.
And and yet now I personally look at that because I listened to one of your podcast video, and one of your guests mentioned about it that it's all about animal suffering.
Hmm.
However, I have a Buddhist approach to suffering. The allegory in Buddhism lore goes is that suffering are the two arrows. The first arrow is the actual pain itself. The second arrow is how we perceive the first arrow. So our own perception about that pain causes us suffering. And when Buddhism is always truly that is to always treat the pain itself appropriately and don't even try to strike ourselves with the second arrow.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
And then animal suffering in a realistic sense, it would be that is the state of a prolonged and unnecessary pain, and
how
not
so?
necessarily well. When you think about it in the wilderness, they don't have to suffer long before, say, they get eaten. And that will be that very moment, very instant. So, in the Buddhist sense, that's the first arrow.
Hmm.
However, if their own body deteriorate due to sickness and whatnot, and so on and so forth, and there's none of the dying process that would occur naturally in the wilderness,
Mm.
then they will
Yeah.
suffer unnecessarily.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point for sure. Um, I actually do wonder. I wonder animals in the wild when they die of, let's just say, old age or natural causes, which I don't know how many do because they might get picked off depending on if they're prey or predators. I wonder if any animals actually just die kind of a peaceful death of just old age. Um, like if you take a predator like lion. So I know with prey, so like zebras and gazelles, the lions are going to pick off the ones that are like have a broken leg or they're really old so they can't run fast. So there's that. But if you take all the predators like lions and stuff, I wonder at old age if they just get old and die, or if their death process is suffering.
Yeah, some of them that I know of tigers. I'm very fascinated with a tiger life cycle.
Mm.
And when two life development comes in, right? They have, let's say, approaching to old age.
Mhm.
The different than the younger and more capable tiger who can still out for themselves. The older tiger are forced out of their habitat and on the edge of the crucifix of human development. They were forced to attack humans. You can look at it from places in India that all the tiger attack on humans were all conducted by tiger who are so old that they cannot conduct their usual hunting behavior.
Mm. Interesting.
So that informs me. And other than that, if you look at the African plain, if you see, and tigers are solitary prey. They're not like apex predator in terms that they form pack hunting strategy.
Mm.
Lion does, so they have their prize.
Nope. I think you might have cut out. Hmm. Hello?
Okay. Now, as for lions, yeah, they have a pack hunting strategy, and usually involving the male lions having their scent blowing downwind to uh, make their prey that they're hunting start running against a direction that the females are setting up an ambush so they can successfully try to catch the prey in that sense. So it's very elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
But when even they themselves are getting too old to hunt, then you can see that they are fading away. Their teeth get starting to form out, and it was a painful way of decaying into that oblivion. And in that natural environment, it might be a saving grace for them to get finished off by the hyenas.
Mm-hmm.
Because compared to lion, the hyena has an even stronger jaw strength,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very
so they
interesting.
can have an even better pack hunting strategy.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. I even think that maybe if we could detect their suffering, if there was humans out and had guns on them, and they were filming a documentary and they noticed an old lion was suffering, it could be worth putting it out of its misery. Sort of like if you find a deer that was like hit by a car that's about to die, you might as well just put it out of its misery. But I do challenge the idea that just because there's suffering in nature, we should any amount of killing animals doesn't matter. I would say that even if we thought we needed to eat animals, um, if we don't need to eat like say a certain amount, like like so we breed cows and pigs and all these various different things so we can kill them and eat them. Would you say that the reason that this is acceptable to do to breed them into existence if they're going to maybe have a life of suffering is acceptable because we need to eat animals, or do you think it's okay even if we didn't need to?
I approach it from even the part of that where we are human, evolutionary speaking, even considering our prehistoric evolutionary track, and how did that lie, the way we live, inform us about comparatively to what we have as in terms of a postmodern way to looking at it. And I still wanted to inform that with our contemporary hunter and gatherers
Mm-hmm.
and how their quality of life, looking at it in that sense. And I'm beginning to see is that modern day veganism is truly a luxury that was temporarily afforded by by industrial agricultural practices, and all that is temporarily
Mm-hmm.
and is very reason.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely is recent. But what I would say is we, with new advancements, we can learn by doing studies what's good for us. So let's say that we find out that it's very healthy to eat meat and eggs and dairy and fruits and vegetables, but it's not healthy to eat things like cakes or cookies or hot dogs or deep fried chicken nuggets. I guess what my claim would be is that even if we decide what's healthiest and best for humans is to eat meat, maybe it's not morally acceptable to eat something that caused an animal to be bred and suffer, if we can get around it. So right now we have so much abundance, and that's great. But I think it's safe to say that like hot dogs and chicken nuggets are not healthy. So if everybody stopped eating hot dogs and chicken nuggets, not only would they be healthier, and I think me and you are both interested in health, and it would be great if people were healthy, but I think it makes sense to at least to morally condemn the idea of making something suffer for our taste buds alone and not for our health.
I also look at it. It is that a part of me fancy about uh hunter gatherer lifestyle because that they put their own life on the line, equal
Mhm.
playing field. I see it as equal opportunities as to that if you are hunting for the meat that you're praying, dealing with the harsh life as it is, and you succeeded, that's worth feeling a sense of pride about.
Mhm.
And because we humans are pack hunters, we also adapt the pack hunting strategy because I see it that again from the evolutionary track, we successfully domesticated back then wolves, and it's
Mhm.
not an easy process. We cohabit similar habitat, and we kind of mirror each other's way of behavior. Our complex social structure with status and hierarchy, it's very much mirror image. And perhaps there is something instinctively visceral about us cohabit and behaving in that way synergistically.
Mhm.
And now I was looking at that. If we're looking at then compared to now, and I'm looking at particularly, uh, I don't know if you follow up with the latest study on the ultra processed food product consumption. It's that when we introduce human children, even infant, to this food at an early age. Hell, I would even push it at that. If you say that even developing um, fetuses while they are still inside the mother's womb,
Mhm.
that makes the brain very vulnerable to all sorts of addiction later on because it changes the the brain's own reaction to the dopamine reward system, that
Mhm.
it becomes hypersensitized to dopamine. At the same time, has because of this, it has a feedback loop to become very tolerant to its own dopamine hypertization. So you ended up have to be more and more frequent and higher say the dopamine secretion. And if you look at that later down in life, it changes people's food preference
Mm.
into this highly palatable yet laced with uh, artificial flavor, but nutritionally poor in all across field. Hell, if you wanted to do uh, all plant-based, it might still be nutritionally better off than eating mostly ultra processed food. Once you know how to prepare a vegetable,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah,
still
no.
based on traditional cooking.
Hmm. Yeah, I love when studies are done like that and we can learn all these different things. And yeah, I agree. I think it's clear that there's an issue with ultra processed foods. I would just say like so I think people have the right to make their own choices if they harm their own body by eating unhealthy food. I do think there's a moral issue when it affects children. So I think if somebody's pregnant, in the same sense that I think they shouldn't smoke cigarettes, I would say if we can learn this information of how healthy you can be for your baby's sake and what you feed your children, that's a different story. But if somebody wants to eat ultra processed like cookies and like Oreos are vegan and they're really bad for you. If somebody wants to eat that and harm their health, then that's their own choice that I wish they wouldn't make, but they might make it. But if somebody wants to eat ultra processed like hot dogs, where it harms their health, but it also is causing suffering and death of another animal, I would say that it's reasonable for even non-vegans to take issue with this. And so somebody could be in favor of hunting deer or of having like grass-fed free range, like what they would call healthy cuts of meat, but they should find issue with somebody that's going to support eating ultra processed animal products.
Yeah, yeah. I for one see myself belong to that position,
Okay.
and it's not simply for my own benefit. I also look at it is that yeah. Now I look at it that okay, we put age restriction, warning sign to alcohol, cigarettes, and whatnot, and what have you.
Mhm.
And now we know that ultra processed food products are just like the ultimate gateway drugs to set the brain become vulnerable to this overconsumption.
Mhm.
Go ahead, have the same treatment. Let's put it out in the open. Let people
Mhm.
decide for themselves, but they have to be properly informed and well informed.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and like children even can walk into fast food places and buy this ultra processed garbage food. They get a cheeseburger and fries and a soda. Like a 7-year-old kid, as long as they have the money on them, can walk in and do this. And we don't have warnings on this, or like a candy aisle. They can grab as many candy bars as they want, as long as they have the money. And I don't know exactly how the warning should go or where the restrictions should be. But I would say that maybe you have to have like an ID of sorts to be able to buy junk food at a store.
Well, that goes even worse because you mentioned that if it's just they have like what's the economic term calls it? The disposable income, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the children at which point we all know that they don't make their own money; they have allowance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the problem then is the policy making and regulatory capture that go further beyond that, because now we have a soda industry and fast food industry making deal with government to have food subsidy in the form of food voucher
Mm-hmm.
that people who needs income assistance and whatnot can only get those ultra processed food products because that's what the food voucher allowed them to trade in for.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
another level insidious.
Mm-hmm. I wonder why it is. I wonder if it's just because the companies pay off the government and the government needs the money. Like, what would happen if the government stopped giving subsidies to those areas and they started giving subsidies to like farms that had like healthy fruits and veggies and stuff?
Well, behavior economists can point it out that show me the incentive and I'll show you the behavior,
Mm,
right? So there's incentives um, with a government and a corporation to collaborate in that regard. And regulatory body basically just called regulatory capture now. However, it is not that they know they're doing bad things and they're relishing it. We have to
mhm,
understand is that the the, the maximum is true that all the roads to hell is paved with good intention. Even people ended up were doing the bad thing. At that
mhm,
moment, they all believed that they had good intention. We all did.
mhm. Gotcha.
So we have to look at it as what incentive, what's the system of the incentive that we ended up designing to a part of that corporate culture to
Mhm,
not only saying that it is a win-win when they can justify it in their profit margin.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's a big topic to tackle. I hope it can get figured out. Okay, so you're pretty into fitness, right? So you don't eat like fast food or any of the junk food yourself?
I find that it's more that I reduce and cut those out of the way and really thinking about how to optimize my metabolism.
Hmm.
I find that I did even better now at my current age than I would have had when I was younger. And also, my attitude when I was younger, as I participating fitness, it was rather unhealthy. Spiritually wise, it was unhealthy because I was too much into the grinding and outperforming and boosting performance or whatnot. That
Hmm.
I didn't really think about the quality of my recovery,
Mm.
rest and recovery. I thought that just like everybody else, I had to put more time in the gym and grind and all that. I ought to become successful, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So I'm guessing if you are focused on living healthy, you're probably at very least not contributing to factory farming. So when you buy your meats and stuff, do you get like free range and hormone free stuff at like the natural food stores?
I try very hard to do the best of my ability, to the best of my ability. And it's still a good thing is that because comparatively, uh, the population size in Canada is nowhere near like in the US per se. So the farm practice here can still be that we able to sustain and supply most of our meat product without going into the industrial agricultural route.
Okay.
But I'm very keen into the kind of a regulatory capture and what kind of a stuff that will be pushed by the regulatory body. As soon as
Mhm.
that trend beginning to shift, I would like to sound the alarm. In the
Mm.
meantime, just because that we don't have the kind of a population size and density in places that certain part of US might have to face.
Yeah.
Still, I would like to see more unpasteurized dairy product.
Hmm.
You know, just on the quality side.
Yeah. Do you are there a lot of farms near where you live that have their own animals?
Well, I mean Richmond. So this place is the river, basically river delta. So it's deemed to have farm rich agricultural soil. Is
Mm.
zoned in future land use as as farmland.
Mm.
However, now there are people playing the municipality politic. Is that yeah they will buy up this farmland cheap and they will uh, declare that they are this farmland, but they don't produce.
Mm.
They don't produce anything that's farm related. They just ended up just buying up these land cheap in the early process and then just hoarding it.
Oh.
Later
Huh.
on, as municipality development goes, they will become big piece landowner and then they could just sell it back to the municipality at a higher profit. Because the problem here is that because of the river delta kind of land, right? We cannot dug very deep to find a stable foundation to raise up, let's say, mega high rise or mega structure.
Mhm.
So the highest you can see at apartment complex don't go higher than 10-story. We have
Mm.
no option to, at least in the city of Richmond, for example, to densely locate apartment units like
Gotcha.
across a bridge, for example. So our density in terms of urban development is limited.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So a
Uh,
lot of people trying to bank it in on that in the later on future.
I see. I see.
This also
Um,
means that we might suffer from our own local food production if it ever comes to that.
mhm. Gotcha. Yeah, that's very fascinating. Let's see. Well, let's branch off to a different side topic. Do you have any pets?
Oh, my landlady, they have their cats, and yeah.
Gotcha. I think pets are very interesting. I feel like since humans are responsible for pets because we domesticated them, I always find it a bummer that we feed them so poorly. Like the most pet food that you get at a store has so much filler, like rice and stuff in this in the food that the animals aren't supposed to eat. I just wasn't sure. I guess if it's not your cat, maybe you don't have many thoughts on feeding cats.
I do have thoughts to it because they are they place a quite interesting moral landscape or moral real estate in our own psyche, isn't it?
Mhm.
So much so is that here is an interesting statistic that veterinarians later on in their career life had very high suicide rate.
Hmm.
Not just attempting suicide, but they succeeded. Uh, because well, all pets' lifespan has shorter lifespan than their pet owner would have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to think that for every pet owner, when they have to bid their farewell for their pets, uh, not just per pet and owners, but the vets, they compound that experience.
Hmm. Like you think it's like the depression of loving animals so much and having to put them down constantly?
That and not even before that, to see that there's almost nothing they could do in their toolkits than to just euthanize them at the end, even though uh, they've been doing everything that they said.
Mm-hmm.
However, I recall this veterinarian because she was uh, she first worked on wildlife conservation and observatory, and then she went into veterinarians, and she wrote this book called Forever Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And she argued is that anything that's fit for healthy human consumption, it is fit for a pet.
Hmm. Oh, for healthy. Okay, for healthy. So it wouldn't be anything that humans happen to consume, just if it's healthy.
It just is labeled healthy. But you have to again look at like evolutionary track, because we before domestication we cohabited,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we cohabited, then that would mean that we all share similar access to food, or so on and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
in that synergistic way, we might have enhanced each other's life, even down to the gut microbiome diversity. You can
Mm-hmm.
always find that kids raised on the farm nearby animal nearby their habitat outside and so forth, their gut microbiome diversity profile is much healthier than just kids that live in suburban or even urban area.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely
there's one notch up for the pets as well. Pet owner will have a higher uh, gut microbiome diversity profile. That is, insofar if you have that trend, you have an anti-inflammatory profile
mm-hmm.
compared to if you develop a gut micro dysbiosis that pushing your uh, inflammation profile to the pro-inflammatory state.
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. I've heard a thing said that the only animals that are overweight are humans and then the animals that humans feed. Because we've invented processed foods for ourselves and then we feed our garbage processed food to our pets. But in nature, everything's going to eat whatever it's naturally supposed to eat, and almost all animals are fit to whatever extent.
Yeah, yeah, to whatever their habitat allowing them to,
Mhm. So like our
right?
downfall
Because
is the invention
mhm,
of extracting things from our food, taking sugar out of sugarcane and taking oils instead of just eating
all
the
the
full whole
plant
foods.
seeds, it doesn't seem like a whole food process. Because
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that we did, so right, from the market perspective, we turned food into commodity,
Mm-hmm.
and that very process increases shelf life. But now if you look at it, it's like, no, duh, even microorganisms don't even want to eat that stuff, and we make them
Mm-hmm.
out of food.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are good inventions that figuring out how to jar and can stuff. We can take good healthy foods and have them have a high shelf life because they're canned, they're jarred. But as far as making the processed foods, yeah, it seems to all be a downside.
I see it like, have you ever heard of the Nova food grade system?
No.
It's a very simple way to grade one's food. Grade A, if you apply for, say, apple produce, for example, right? Grade A, it will be just the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Grade B, it will be applesauce. So that's like a process removed, like turning apple and mush it into applesauce.
Mm-hmm.
Grade C, it will be apple juice. That's
Mm.
a further remove from apple itself because you're beginning to remove all the pulps and then all the fibers from it.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, grade D, it will be apple pie. Yeah, you have the word apple in it. There's residue of apple in the ingredient, but it's not just an apple anymore.
Yeah.
You have a whole bunch of other things added to it.
Yeah.
So I use as the rule of thumb that everything that I eat, even say the processing of whole foods, right? So long I stay in category A and B, I'm practicing whole food,
Mm-hmm.
right? C is risky
Mm-hmm.
because at that time you're just drinking your calories,
Yeah.
and that prevents you from actually using your jawbone and your jaw muscle to actually chew on the food, or
Mm-hmm.
even just mixing it with your saliva to to first introduce it to later on your gut microbiome, your own DNA sequence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
the rate, yeah, and the rate of introducing these processed nutrients into your system, your body will have, I would say, even a stressful toxic response because now all of that, say the processed sugar, get into your bloodstream way too quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
your body have to pump up your beta cells pancreas to produce insulin to trying to regulate blood glucose level because the extremity of your bodies are very sensitive to blood glucose toxicity. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't do that right away, you're gonna have tissue damage at the extremity of your lens and even say your eye, for example. This is why that end stage type 2 diabetes patient will lose their eyesight, their lens has to be amputated
Mm-hmm.
because of gouts,
Gotcha. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's a bummer that people want money so bad that they figure out scientific ways to make us have cravings and get addicted to stuff. And then when you want to do the right thing, it's almost impossible because as soon as you start feeling, if you ever feel depressed or anything where hits of dopamine will make you feel better, you instantly grab for the processed stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and when you take things like drugs or cigarettes or things like that that your loved ones don't want you to get sick and die, they'll tell you you need to go to rehab to stop doing these drugs, you need to stop smoking, stop drinking. But for some reason it doesn't matter how overweight people get, nobody ever tells people stop eating this processed food, because then they feel like they're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And we really need to be able to encourage each other to be healthier, I think.
Yeah, because you begin to survey and really look at holistically about addiction and addictive like behavior. I used to suffer from behavior addiction,
Hmm.
right? Not substance addiction, because behavior addiction can be, oh boy, uh, how do you tell a workaholic that you need to work less when their very identity might build about their productivity,
Hmm.
their status in that sense? And now we're looking at it as that, oh, we've even built an identity about around our food addiction because, hey, foodie is a thing now,
Hmm.
right? So it is hard, and yet it is not impossible.
Hmm.
Um, this recent book that just came out called The Dopamine Nation. uh, uh the uh the author who just recently who also featured on the Andrew Huberman's Lab
Mm.
podcast, Amber Lincolns, I believe that was her name.
Yeah, I'll write that down. I love Andrew Huberman. I'll actually,
Yeah,
he's where I
yeah.
just learned about the jaw thing that you were talking about, the
Hmm.
importance of the chewing.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And she pointed out is that our dopamine system has a seesaw relation with the brain's pain response.
mm,
So how it works, it is that if we nowadays have this easy to access dopamine spike based on our behavior, based on our substance consumption,
mhm,
okay, what happened then is that the stacking of ever so readily available yet higher and higher dopamine response, the body will have to later on return to below baseline. That's the important thing, below baseline
mhm,
by driving up the pain. Now,
mm,
that will make evolutionary sense because if we get our dopamine up, say, in our natural wilderness, and it never comes down to even below baseline, right?
mhm,
How then will we able to find new experience or new kind of behavior that's rewarding? We have no desire to learn or to even
mhm,
explore. So he has to not simply bring back to baseline, but to below baseline. But the only way the body to do so
mhm,
is jacking up the pain.
mhm,
So what that would look like for the brain and for the people who later on got so deep into the addiction is that they no longer even enjoy whatever that they're engaging or behaving or consuming. It's all
mhm.
just so they can avoid the pain. And that will be like right into when they're starting to have the withdrawal. This is why they have like the high and crash, high and crash.
Mhm.
Everything they do from their own of their behavior of their addiction addictive habit when they did the substance consumption is to avoid that very painful crash.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the problem is, from my understanding, you
Mm-hmm.
want dopamine to be something that you work for, and
Exactly.
we're not working for it anymore. And one of the biggest issues is probably something like a cell phone, because it contains all the issues. You have the games in there, you have the TV shows, the movies, the music, you have the social medias, you have uh,
And the novelty factors.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so and so it,
the cognitive novelty. Yeah.
yeah, it makes you lose your base level joy of things that might have a good health benefit, like being out in nature, see just being in peace and quiet, but seeing like a river flowing, or seeing some trees, and you
And
love the feeling.
intrusively, you might even think about that. Oh, I wonder how would this like my social media update
Hmm. Yeah, because when you see somebody like the pictures you post, then you just get excited, and you're like, oh,
because
people
that
love
is like a
this.
status recognition
Yeah, yeah.
instead of actually doing something that is worthy of recognition.
Yeah. Well, and then with children, it makes them not get that status recognition in person, so they don't learn to socialize. So they just figure out what people like best that they put online, and it seems to be really destroying just humans in general. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that there are plenty of people that are willing to research it, share the information, and then we can do our best to at least help our loved ones.
There are. I just recently finished up another Jordan Peterson podcast, and he interviewed this educator who started off these pilot school all over the place, and they have they call it the Action Academy.
Mm,
Yeah, they can have way under public school budget to start this academy And yet the students who enrolled at this academy, this learning program, are so self-motivated and self-regulated
Mm-hmm.
in order to do so. And when you're listening to the way how they structure around that school, maximum responsibility. They allow the students to take ownership and responsibility for their own learning.
Mm-hmm.
And they always they don't feature expert. They don't feature expert by just like professing or then just like a one way knowledge giving them or whatnot. They
Mm-hmm.
they present them with challenges and questions.
Mm.
So naturally engage with the children's curiosity, and they beginning to learn, wanted to learn things on their own and learn about it.
Okay. And you said that was Action Academy
Action
on
Academies,
Jordan
yes.
Peterson.
On the Jordan Peterson podcast, he interviewed the co-founder, I believe. His name is Jeff Sandford. Yes,
Okay.
spell last name spell Sandfer. Jeff Sandford.
All right, got it. I'm gonna look into that. I do have to hop off here in a sec, but it's been a great conversation. I think we agree on a lot of things. And even though we might not agree on the idea of veganism on a whole, I really think the most important part, because in my mind, it really just comes down to figuring out where suffering is, and if there's extra suffering that we don't need, we shouldn't do it. And I think the best thing that could happen for the sake of suffering in animals would be going from factory farming to doing something like just free range grass fed farming, not only for people's health. Like I don't eat animal products, but if somebody does eat animal products, I don't want them eating stuff that has hormones pumped into it that makes our kids start puberty at 10 years old. And so I think every choice we make, so when you go to the grocery store, you might normally get grass-fed stuff, but if you're thinking about grabbing like some quick food on the way home from McDonald's, just deciding, you know what, I'm not going to do this for your own health, or for the sake of, if everybody did it together and we ended factory farming and the government stopped giving subsidies to these farms,
Yeah,
I think it would be a good benefit for human health, and it would make less animals bred into this existence. And maybe people could, if they still feel the need to eat animals, they can cut back on it. It won't be just for the taste pleasure. We would learn scientifically what the healthiest amount is to eat and not to overeat.
yeah. Because here's the point at it is that overconsumption is only the body's way that they're so confused with the ultra processed food environment that they are eating to survive. However, when we can eat to satiate an actual whole food, when the actual nutrient of the food, because we don't directly taste nutrient, our taste preference is detecting the kind of nutrient that
Mm.
actually nature provided to us. It is a
Mhm.
signal that we need to be toned in and well adjusted in a natural food environment. And once we
Interesting.
do that, our body don't, yeah, because this is based on another book called The End of Cravings.
Mm.
And that's where the body weight set point comes in.
End of cravings. Yeah, I'm gonna look into
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's where the body weight set point comes in. So when you can match your natural taste in a naturally involved food or traditionally prepared food, that even say that you eat animal product, when you learn how we can traditionally prepare it, that's I mean eating the whole animal, right? And you can eat at a satiation. And this is what I also practice. I practice time restricted feeding. It's a form
Mhm.
of intermittent fasting protocol. And in fact, on the weekend, I consistently go into a 40-hour long fast. So my
Mm.
last meal was last night, Friday night, and today I won't be eating anything salt,
Mm-hmm.
not until tomorrow. I cannot do this if I was doing like ultra processed. My
Mm.
body just can't do it.
It would be
But when I
craving
can
more.
eat it, yeah, yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
so malnourished. But when I can really getting into making my own food and then selecting the food for the way how traditionally prepared to it, and really aiming for what actually making quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing it on a hobo budget. I would
Mm-hmm.
call it. I'm not like ultra rich or I'm working in the tech sector or so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do for a living. I work in a warehouse doing manual labor,
Mm.
which I call it active recovery with pay. You know, it's like changing that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Be grateful that your body has a lymphic system that gets better when you move.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we definitely don't move enough, and we aren't around temperatures enough. We're usually inside buildings, and usually we're sitting, and we don't get the right amount of heat and cold. We just make it comfortable, and I think we need to be out in nature as much as we can, move as much as we can, and I need to do better myself for sure.
Well, you'll be amazed that once you set on that path, you constantly prove your past self wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the fear that we have to go over. That we are afraid that we fail. We feel that we were wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? But how do you advance? How do you know what you're truly made of? And really be humbled by what you have inherited from our shared evolutionary history
Mm-hmm.
and celebrate that for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, hey, I gotta hop off here. But it's been a good talk, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Have a good one.
You too.